My name is Noor, and until that day, I believed funerals were the one place where truth was allowed to exist without decoration. A place where grudges paused, masks slipped, and people stood as who they really were because pretending felt disrespectful in the presence of death. I was wrong. The day my aunt asked me to pretend I didn't know her at the funeral, I learned that some people don't stop performing even when someone is being laid into the ground. And what she did next proved that her request was never about grief, it was about control. The funeral was for my grandmother, my mother's mother, the woman who raised half of us when money was tight and time was cruel. She was the kind of person who remembered birthdays without calendars and fed people before they even said they were hungry. When she died, it felt like the center of our family collapsed quietly overnight. No dramatic final words. No warning. Just absence. I arrived early, dressed in black, my chest tight with that heavy, hollow feeling grief brings. The funeral hall smelled like flowers and polished wood. Soft murmurs floated through the room as people arrived in pairs and small clusters, greeting each other with low voices and sad smiles. I stood near the back, trying to prepare myself emotionally, reminding myself to stay composed for my mother's sake. That's when my Aunt Salma approached me. She didn't hug me. She didn't even offer a sympathetic look. She leaned in close, her voice low and sharp, as if she were giving instructions before a performance. "Listen carefully," she said. "I need you to do something." I blinked, surprised. "What?" She glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. "During the service and after, I need you to pretend you don't know me." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. The words didn't make sense in my head. "What?" I repeated. She sighed impatiently, like I was slowing her down. "Don't acknowledge me, don't talk to me. If anyone asks, you're here as your mother's daughter only, not connected to me." My heart started pounding. Why would I do that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes hardened. "Because it's complicated," she said. "And because I'm asking you. This wasn't the time or place for family drama." My grandmother's body was in the next room. People were arriving to pay respects. My grief was already fragile, stretched thin. "This is Grandma's funeral," I said. "Why does this matter right now?" Selma's jaw tightened. "I don't want questions," she snapped. "I don't want people associating us today. Just do this one thing." There it was again, that familiar tone. The one she had used my whole life. The tone that didn't ask, didn't explain, didn't allow room for refusal. Salma was my mother's older sister, and growing up, she'd always acted like authority followed her naturally. She decided what people talked about, who was included, who was quietly pushed aside. And she had never handled being questioned well. Still, this felt different. This felt wrong. "I don't understand," I said. "I'm family." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Not today," she replied. Before I could say anything else, she straightened her posture, fixed her scarf, and walked away like the conversation had never happened. I stood there, stunned, my grief mixing with confusion and a slow burn of anger. Pretend I didn't know her? At a funeral? The request echoed in my head, unsettling and cold. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there was some unresolved conflict, some distant relative drama I didn't know about. Maybe she was overwhelmed. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like I was being erased for convenience. The service began shortly after. I sat with my mother, holding her hand as prayers were recited and memories were shared. I watched Salma from across the room. She sat stiffly in the front row, her face composed, her grief perfectly contained. People approached her quietly, offering condolences. She nodded, accepted sympathy, played her role flawlessly. At one point, her eyes flicked toward me. I looked away, not because I agreed to her request, but because I didn't know what else to do. I felt trapped between respecting the gravity of the moment and refusing to participate in something that felt dishonest. After the service, people gathered outside. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Some cried openly. Others shared stories. Laughter breaking through tears the way it sometimes does when grief loosens people's guards. That's when things started to unravel. A distant relative approached me, someone I hadn't seen in years. "You're Selma's niece, right?" she asked gently. "I remember you from the wedding years ago." I froze. My aunt was standing only a few feet away, watching. My throat tightened. I glanced at Selma. Her expression was unreadable. But her eyes were sharp, warning. Before I could answer, Salma stepped in. No, she said smoothly. She's not related to me. The words landed like a slap. I stared at her, disbelief flooding my chest. The relative looked confused, embarrassed. Oh, sorry, she said, backing away. Salma didn't look at me. She turned her attention elsewhere as if nothing had happened. Something broke in that moment. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was final. She hadn't just asked me to pretend. She had done it herself, publicly, casually, without hesitation. I walked away, my hands shaking, my eyes burning. I went behind the building where no one else was standing and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. My grandmother was gone. My mother was grieving. And my aunt had just erased me like I was an inconvenience, a liability she didn't want attached to her image. I stayed quiet for the rest of the gathering, not because I agreed with Salma, but because I refused to give her the reaction she seemed to expect. I spoke to people who approached me directly. I supported my mother. I did what I came to do to honor my grandmother, but Salma wasn't done. Later, as people began leaving, I overheard raised voices near the parking area. I recognized my aunt's voice, immediately sharp, defensive. Curiosity pulled me closer. Despite myself, I did everything, she was saying. I took care of her, I handled the arrangements, no one helped me. I stopped short. She was speaking to my grandmother's old friend, someone who had known the family for decades. And Salma was lying, boldly, shamelessly. My mother and I had handled the hospital visits. We had arranged transportation. We had spent nights coordinating details while Salma made appearances and disappeared when real work was needed. And now, here she was, rewriting the story in real time. That's not true, my mother said suddenly, stepping into view. Salma stiffened. Excuse me? You didn't do everything, my mother said calmly, though her voice trembled. You know that. The air around them went still. People nearby slowed their steps, pretending not to listen while clearly listening. Salma laughed, sharp and humorless. Why are you doing this here? She snapped. This is not the place, my mother met her gaze. You didn't think it was the place when you denied knowing my daughter. That was it. Every head turned. Salma's face drained of color. What are you talking about? You told people Noor wasn't related to you, my mother continued. You asked her to pretend she didn't know you. At our mother's funeral. A murmur spread through the group. Confusion, discomfort, recognition. Salma's eyes flashed with fury. She turned toward me. You told her? I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. You did, I said. You said it yourself. The silence was thick, heavy with unspoken judgments. Salma opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time all day, she didn't seem prepared. She tried to recover, forcing a laugh. You're twisting things, she sighed. I was just trying to avoid drama. By creating it? Someone asked quietly. She snapped her head toward the voice, but the damage was already done. People were connecting dots, remembering moments, reframing past interactions. My mother took my hand. We're leaving, she said softly. As we walked away, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread quietly through the family. Questions were asked. Stories were compared. Salma's carefully maintained image cracked not because of anything dramatic I did, but because she couldn't control the narrative anymore. The truth had slipped out at the one moment she assumed no one would challenge her. She never apologized. Instead, she sent messages blaming me for causing tension and disrespecting her during a sensitive time. I didn't reply because here's what I learned that day. When someone asks you to erase yourself for their comfort, it's never just about that moment. It's about power. About who gets to exist publicly and who gets pushed into the background. When inconvenient. My aunt asked me to pretend I didn't know her at the funeral. Then she denied me out loud. Then she tried to rewrite history while standing on our grandmother's grave. And in doing so, she showed everyone exactly who she was. Grief reveals people. It strips away polish. It exposes priorities. Some people respond to loss with humility and honesty. Others respond with control and performance. I chose not to carry her shame. I chose to stand in the truth, quietly, firmly, even when my voice shook, because pretending not to know someone is painful, but pretending not to know Yourself is worse, and I refuse to do that, no matter the setting, no matter the cost.